Hello, nice to meet you. We are about to start the live broadcast now. Today's live session is about Daegu, specifically Daegu Metropolitan City. I would like to talk about Daegu Metropolitan City. There is an expert analysis available on Richgo. We can go into the expert analysis and then look at Daegu. Then you can see all the data related to Daegu at a glance. Currently, Daegu has a population of about 2.36 million, as you can see here. This is the Richgo Silver Rate chart updated as of September 22nd. Daegu is currently on the rise. Daegu is already on the rise. Should we extend the months a bit? As you can see, in the case of Daegu, the Jont's prices were dropping, but the sales prices have been increasing for 3 consecutive months in July, August, and September has not even started yet. It hasn't been long, but the range of this movement is already quite large. So, what does this story mean? Daegu is currently showing a gradually positive trend. As for the investment score of Daegu, it is around 64 points. So what does this mean? I said 60 points is the baseline. Since 64 points is a bit better than the baseline, what does that imply? I mentioned that a score of 70 corresponds to my knee, and a score of 64 is about halfway between the waist and the knee. So we can say that it's not such a bad area. For buying a home, it's not bad at all. This is because it's below the waist and a little above the knees, right? So, when looking at the investment scores, it is not a bad area. This can be seen. And if you look at the undervalued Jeonse data, Daegu is currently overvalued by about 15% compared to the actual Jeonse used. So there is still a bit of a bubble in the sales prices compared to the Jeonse prices. Looking at this, Gyeongnam, Ulsan, and Jeonnam seem to be somewhat undervalued, while Daegu can be considered quite overvalued. In the case of undervaluation of Jeonse, the displayed value varies depending on how the period is set. From this, it seems that Incheon is currently the most overvalued. Incheon and Busan are the most overvalued. As I mentioned in my book, this can be observed over a period of about 5 years, and we can look at it for around 7 years. So, approximately 5 to 7 years. And what is good about this chart? The good thing about this chart is that it allows for comparative analysis of different regions. This is the biggest advantage of the Jeonse Undervaluation Index. Therefore, it is possible to rank which regions are overvalued or undervalued in terms of their actual utility value compared to Jeonse. For this reason, you can see that this is one of the quite good pieces of data. I have been continuously saying that Daegu is also a good place. Our Jonghyun shared some good insights. Won't prices in Daegu rise after the move-in period ends? It seems like Jeonse is being released well. That's right, prices will go up after the move-in period. So, you know me, right? There are only a few regions that I talk about as likely to improve, but I mentioned Daegu as well, and Daegu is good too. The current housing purchase burden index is calm, 85. If you look here, this has also been updated. It has changed to red for an increase and blue for a decrease. The average is currently 89, and the current value is 85. So what does that mean? Whether we look at the undervaluation of Jeonse or the burden of purchasing a home, it's quite reasonable, right? So, to account for this at the lowest level, it would need to drop by 16.5%. What does this mean? When was the lowest point for apartments in Daegu historically? It was in February 2009. Even if it were to drop from this point, what would be the maximum percentage? Up to 16.5%. But if interest rates drop a bit, or if income increases, it will automatically decrease, right? Interest rates are expected to be lowered, aren't they? What does that mean? If it drops by about 10 to 15%, it would be a complete bargain. So what about Daegu? I've always said it. You can buy in Daegu, even now. But what did I say? What did I say? I told you to buy through auctions. Why? Because you can buy 10 to 15% cheaper through auctions. You must buy through auctions. It's really great to secure a home in Daegu through auctions right now. But what is an auction? You can't buy if there are no items available. However, Daegu is really great. If you look here, let's check the auctions. Are there many apartment auctions in Daegu? Not many. There are nearly 200 cases coming out each month right now. How wonderful is that? How great is that? You all have a lot of items, so make sure to buy them through auctions for just 101. I highly recommend it. And on the 12th of next month, October 12th, I will be giving a lecture on the real estate market prospects. While giving a lecture on real estate market prospects, what else do I have in the afternoon? I will be working with our auction genius, Kim Tae-hoon. When big data and auctions are combined, the potential for powerful investments is significant. In relation to the membership, I will discuss how powerful investments can be achieved through the combination of big data and auctions, and I will also talk about promising areas. There will be a lecture where I will clearly explain how much investment return can be generated by combining big data and auctions, so it would be great if you could attend. As for Daegu, do you see the burden index for purchasing homes with Jonts? It has all decreased. What percentage drop is indicated compared to the low point? 0%, 0%. What does that mean? It is the lowest point in history. Considering the housing burden index, the current Jeonse prices in Daegu are at the lowest point in history. Jeonse prices are now at a point where they are unlikely to drop any further. Do you understand? It's really cheap. Daegu. Next, take a look at the current apartment prices compared to income. Just how affordable they are in Daegu. As you can see, this is currently around 6. This is a bit different from the Housing Purchase Burden Index. The Housing Purchase Burden Index is below average. Why? The Housing Purchase Burden Index does not include interest rates. However, the apartment prices relative to income only take income into account. Interest rates are not included. Now, looking at this, it is said that prices could drop by up to 30% at the moment. Back in February 2009, the ratio was only 4 times the income, just in the early 4 times. Looking at this, we can think that prices could drop by as much as 30%. So, in relation to income, it is still somewhat manageable. However, apartment prices are expensive. So, what I'm saying is to buy through auctions. And as for the current Jeonse prices, they are at the level of 2013 in relation to income. So, Jeonse is indeed very cheap. It's really, really cheap. It truly is cheap. One of the reasons I see that there is a bit of a bubble in the real estate market across South Korea is the ROI, and currently the rental yield in Daegu is only 3.3%. Of course, now that there is a large supply, I think that is why the monthly rent is not that expensive. However, looking at this, if the monthly rent goes up, the apartment prices should drop, and that would be at least a bit higher than the bank interest rates. So, what does that mean? The best time was when it was 2% higher than the bank interest rates. This is because real estate involves a lot of transaction costs. We have to pay acquisition and registration taxes. You have to pay property taxes. You have to pay real estate agent fees. You have to pay loan interest. Considering all of this, it's not just a simple 3% or 5% increase in apartment prices. So, there is still quite a bit of a bubble. And let's take a look at how expensive this is compared to monthly rent. PRR, which stands for price to annual rent ratio, is similar to the price earnings ratio. In the stock market, why is that? Isn't the value, whether it's real estate or stocks, determined by how much money you earn in a year? Isn't this the most important thing? And this is the money earned over a year. How much more expensive is it compared to bank interest? This is important, right? Why? Because bank interest is an absolute standard. The possibility of loss compared to the principal is 0. The risk is 0, yet it offers a 4% return per year. This then becomes the absolute benchmark. If you look at this data, it doesn't seem very long. Here, you can see the red PRR of Daegu, which was 24 times in 2015. But right now, it's still about 30 times. So if you receive monthly rent in Daegu for 30 years, it becomes an apartment. In terms of the stock market, what is the current P ratio? It's 30? 30? How expensive is that? It's very expensive. So, we can understand that the prices are still quite high. Seoul is 53 times more expensive. The monthly rent in Seoul is the highest, but does it make sense to receive rent for over 50 years to buy one apartment in Seoul? This doesn't make sense. It's 47 times in Sejong, Busan is 37 times, and Gyeonggi is 35 times. What do you think is the appropriate figure? The metro area should also drop below 30 times. Metro cities are too expensive at 30 times. Fall below 30 times. Now the lowest is 23 times. Chungnam is also at 23 times. But here in Daegu, I still say that you should absolutely not buy an apartment right now, meaning you shouldn't buy one that is currently on the market. What am I saying? Live through auctions. Live through auctions. I will explain in detail during the Market Outlook lecture on October 12th, but the current economy is not in a normal situation. It is very risky. Last Sunday, I was operating a VIP membership. This means that the quality of government services and such varies significantly by stage. In the VIP membership, I have detailed my insights on how the future market will unfold and how we should manage our assets. I plan to share some of this information during the Market Outlook lecture on October 12th, and it is quite serious. As I always say, there is a very high possibility of a significant recession in the real estate market of South Korea and the overall economy of South Korea in the second half of next year. Therefore, if Daegu does not actually have such issues, it can be a good place to invest, but there may be some risks involved. Why? Because when it collapses, it tends to fall apart all at once. In the case of Daegu, the Johnson rate is currently 64.9%. The Johnson rate is quite poor. I mentioned a few times in my book that you should invest when the Johnson rate is high, and even if it drops, it should only have dropped for 1 to 2 years. But what did I say about the Johnson rate continuously falling? I have always said that it is dangerous because the sales prices, which are influenced by investment or speculative sentiment, have risen too much compared to the actual utility value of John's prices. You can find all of this in my book. Therefore, this situation is very risky right now. Johnson price ratio, and we also created something called the PJR, which is the sales price compared to the Johnson price, right? So, how expensive is the sales price compared to the actual use value of John's? What do you think when looking at this?